Honourable member for Yarmouth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in Yarmouth yesterday there was a rally of about 300 people, maybe more, that came together to support a restored ferry service in Yarmouth, between Yarmouth and New England. Hundreds of people in attendance, Mr. Speaker, from the business community, local, municipal representatives, myself, one of the candidates in the upcoming federal election, and many more concerned citizens. People brought together only because they have a very sincere and real concern about the future of the economy of Yarmouth and are desperately seeking leadership from this provincial government and our federal government to help the area restore ferry service. Now, leading up to yesterday's rally on Saturday, the Minister of Economic and Rural Development and Tourism was quoted in the Chronicle Herald as saying he wouldn't be at the rally and he believed that Yarmouth should focus on the positives instead of speaking about the ferry. And while I do sincerely appreciate the spirit behind the minister's comments, in that the people of Yarmouth and the people of all Nova Scotia need to focus on the advantages and the benefits that we have in our communities and focus on ways that we can move forward with our businesses and be innovative to help create the conditions for success. The people in our community didn't appreciate the context in which the minister said those, because he was insinuating that we should stop talking about the ferry and focus on everything else. And I wanted to assure the minister that looking forward for Yarmouth and being positive, it needs to be understood that a long-term ferry service is a part of that vision. And I found it interesting because, 2 years ago when the members of Yarmouth came together, we actually asked the NDP government to do just that. Look at the positives. Look at the benefits of having that ferry service that links this province, this country, to one of the greatest and biggest markets in the world. We asked them to look at those positives, look at those benefits, look at those advantages, and instead what we got was a resounding no. And we've seen the consequences as a result of that decision, Mr. Speaker. According to the municipal units, we've had over 300 jobs lost in the Yarmouth area alone. Businesses have closed, restaurants, tourism facilities, including the Rod Colony and Harbour Inn, which is Yarmouth's second largest hotel. Tourism operators across Southwest Nova have issued concern. Tourism operators in Queens County, Shelburne, Hubbards, all the way up to Cape Breton. And we've had a significant impact on the psyche and the confidence of the people of Yarmouth in their economy and in the leadership that this government has shown to be good stewards of the economy moving forward. Now, I will admit that the ferry in Yarmouth is not the be-all and end-all of our economy or our community. We have a strong fishing industry with proud fishermen that go in, day out, and bring lobsters and fish ashore that we send to domestic and foreign markets. We have innovative and creative and dedicated entrepreneurs and small business owners who just want to see the best for Yarmouth. And we have a real sense of community spirit, of coming together when times are tough and pulling through together to hopefully see better days in the future. And I will admit that the issues and challenges that Yarmouth is facing aren't just due to this government. They're consistent with challenges that communities are facing across rural Nova Scotia and rural Canada due to larger global trends like urbanization, the phenomenon of changing demographics with an aging population, the recent global recession. These are things that, of course, have impacted the economy of Yarmouth along with many other places in Nova Scotia and the country. But, Mr. Speaker, during tough times, during tough economic times, the role of government can't be to cut economic generators, can't be to get rid of them. Government should always invest in those things, those pieces of infrastructure that generate economic activity, that bring people and business to hard-hit regions. Because to not do that, Mr. Speaker, is bad economic policy. I don't know an economist in the world that'll say cut economic drivers during downturns or recessions. I've never heard that argument put forward by anybody. Now, with the Yarmouth Ferry, we've been told that there's no business case. There was no business case for the CAT Ferry specifically. But we have yet to see any evidence, any analysis to support that claim. Nothing has been tabled in this House, despite numerous requests from myself and other members of this caucus to table such evidence, to table such analysis, to make it public so people can see it, so the business community can take a look for themselves and judge. That hasn't happened. And I understand that if you look solely at the CAT as a business of and to its own, perhaps you can make the argument that, well, it's not sustainable because it requires subsidy. But that doesn't take into consideration the wider economic spin-offs of having such a vessel in place. And if that's the case, if we looked at the CAT or the Yarmouth Ferry, whatever vessel that is, as a business of and to itself, then why doesn't this government do that with other ferries in the province, with the Digby Ferry, with the PEI Ferry, the Cape Breton Ferry? Why doesn't it do these things? Newfoundland Ferry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. I've been up to Cape Breton a few times. Yeah. But why doesn't it say that? Why isn't the government saying this to all ferry operators in the province? That no, we're not going to give you any money. You need to be viable and sustainable on your own. They don't do that. They haven't done that. So why is that happening in Yarmouth? If they're saying to every ferry operator in the province that you need to do this on your own without our help, then why are they putting millions of dollars into subsidizing those vessels? I think, Mr. Speaker, the answer is quite simple, because when it comes to ferries, the government actually does realize that they have a role to play in ensuring those pieces of transportation infrastructure are in place, because they generate economic activity, because they ensure the transport of people and goods and the exchange of people and goods between provinces, areas, and countries. That's why they invested $3 million in CB Rail. In roads. That's why they put money into roads, so people can travel. That's one of the, I think, the greatest roles that government play in our society, is to ensure people can be mobile, can move, that people can get their goods to market, that people can visit other destinations. So why is the Yarmouth Ferry different, Mr. Speaker? A ferry that connects this province and this country to one of the largest and most lucrative markets in the world. We're told that we didn't have the right boat, that the CAT wasn't the right boat. But when you look at the numbers, that vessel, although it might not be the best one for the area because it can't transport freight and trucks, that vessel still produced profit for Nova Scotians. As I've tabled before in this House, Mr. Speaker, the Chambers of Commerce from southwestern Nova Scotia issued a cost-benefit analysis that indicated that an annual $6 million investment in a ferry service would have yielded over $22 million in profits for Nova Scotians. So you might say it's not the right boat, but the numbers say that boat still brought money into Nova Scotians, still gave them, put money in their pockets. You still received a return on investment into that vessel. We're told there was no business case. But again, we haven't seen any analysis to substantiate that. So how do we know? How do we know there's no business case if you don't present the business case and let people take a look at it? No numbers have been presented to us, to the people of Yarmouth, and to the public, yet we hear there's no business case. We've been told that tourism numbers are up by 3%, I believe it was, this past year, and that's an indication that a vessel's not needed in Yarmouth, connecting us to the New England market. Numbers are actually down in Southwest Nova if you look at the stats that have come out from the Finance Department and the Tourism Department. And I think some of the other numbers are inflated because of the cruise vessels that come into the Halifax Harbor. Those clients do not necessarily invest a lot of money into the economy. They come off for a couple hours and get back on the boat and leave. They don't stay in our accommodations facilities. They don't fill up our hotels. They might not even eat a meal here. And if tourism is so great in the province, then why does every tourism operator I talk to say that they're having a hard time? That's what's confusing for me. We hear tourism is up. We're doing great. We don't need a boat in Yarmouth. But every single tourism operator I've talked to, and it's not just people in Yarmouth, I've talked to White Point and Queens who have lost 50% of their American business. 50% of their American business gone, attributed directly to the loss of the Yarmouth Ferry. Why the tourism operators that have called me from Shelburne, from Hubberts, from Digby, from PEI, Cape Breton, why aren't they doing well? Why do they tell me that they've been impacted by the loss of the ferry? We're told that Americans should pay. But 80% of the clients that come across on that boat are Americans coming to Nova Scotia. Portland and Bar Harbor, a lot of those places in the U.S. benefit from domestic tourism and don't have the same economic benefit as we do with having a ferry service. So there's no impetus for their governments to invest in the service because they don't need it as much as we do. When people bring these facts to the minister's attention, and he says, focus on the positives and don't talk about the ferry. I think it is time that the minister and this government stop lecturing the people of Yarmouth on what we need and start listening to our concerns, the concerns of tourism operators from across the province, from business owners from across the province, and acting on those. That's what I think good governance is. Businesses in this province have worked for over 100 years to educate people on the American side of the border to come through Yarmouth, to come visit Nova Scotia. And in 2 years, with that one decision to cut the ferry, we have thrown that education all away. And whenever we get a boat back, we have to start again from scratch. We've thrown it all away. And I think that's a shame, Mr. Speaker, because all the people of Yarmouth, the people of southwestern Nova Scotia, the people of this province want is for this minister to listen to those concerns, this premier to listen to those concerns, and believe as we do in the full potential of Yarmouth, in the full potential of the tourism sector in Nova Scotia, and understand that having a vessel in Yarmouth connecting us to New England is part of that vision. Help us achieve those goals and help us reach that full potential. Because the people that have been affected by this in Yarmouth and outside, all across the province, don't want a handout, Mr. Speaker, I'll be clear. They just want to work. They just want to have a business and provide for their families. And because this is a provincial issue and it is a national issue connecting us to an international marketplace, I'm urging this government to come to the table now, show leadership, work with the federal government, with the people of Yarmouth, and help us get a ferry service back as soon as we can in the area. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.